In modern society, the internet is something that is so integral to what it means to be human that it is almost impossible to imagine a world where it doesn't exist. Yet, I feel like there are comparatively few works that focus not only on the impact that the internet and social media has on singular people, but also the impact it has on society as a whole. Before the anime aired, I was vaguely aware of needy streamer Overload, the visual novel the anime was based on. I had a couple of friends who gave the game a try, and pretty much everything I heard about it was overwhelmingly positive. But I'm sure you know how it is. Visual novels always feel like a huge commitment, especially with how long most of them take to complete. However, despite not having played the game, the announcement of the anime filled me with a lot of excitement for how it would go. And who knows, if the anime were to convince me, there's a good chance I'd end up buying and playing the game. Suffice it to say, the anime has convinced me, and playing through the game will be one of the things taking up most of my summer break. In this video, I will go over a few things that made this show so unique and entertaining to me, and why it is a candidate for my new anime of the year 2026. If you enjoyed this type of video, do consider subscribing to the channel, as it really helps me make more videos like this in the future. As someone who has made it his mission to watch at least one episode of every new anime airing each and every season, I've become pretty confident in predicting if I like a show based on only its first episode. My judgment is off sometimes, so I do give shows which I'm not quite sure about a bit more chance to prove themselves, and conversely, there are shows of which I like the first episode, but where the rest of the season doesn't really do it for me. Needy Girl Overdose, however, is one of the anime that I was sure I'd end up enjoying from the word go. I don't think the show is perfect, and there are definitely some things I want to criticize throughout the show's runtime, but episode 1 by itself already convinced me the show's strengths would end up outweighing its weaknesses. The thing that immediately stood out to me was the very unique approach the show took to its visual storytelling. The immediate comparisons that will inevitably be drawn is to shows like Zero Experiments Lane and Monogatari, with both its avant-garde way the scenes are shot, the very metaphorical way the conversations are structured. The first episode especially keeps you on your toes all throughout, with sudden and abrasive cuts, a mixed media approach where it sometimes even includes images and backgrounds from real life, and back and forth dialogue sequences which help delve deep into the psychological mind state of the characters. While the rest of the episodes aren't quite as dense, and the avant-garde type of directing takes a bit of a step back in favor of more traditional storytelling, they're still very enjoyable to watch. The anime takes heavy inspiration from the so-called Jirai-kei aesthetic. Translated to Landmine Girl, Jirai-kei is derived from the term Jirai Onna, a derogatory term used to stereotype women with mental illnesses and other mood-swing inducing conditions as ticking time bombs. This particular subculture carries a stereotype of young women who dress in these cute, hyper-feminine clothes and have personalities that completely contradict that look. The anime uses the pastel pinks and purples of the Jirai-kei aesthetic and contrasts them against pitch black backgrounds. The usage of this type of aesthetic also creates a kind of visual irony. The brighter and more sparkly it looks on screen, the more unstable the reality underneath is. The anime also uses atmosphere shifts and color coding very well to sell the vibes and atmosphere the series wants to portray. The way the art shifts from soft, watercolor lo-fi aesthetics to abstract, pixelated visual noise showcases the feeling behind a character going through a panic attack or crisis pretty well. I also think the way the directing relies on fast cuts can be interpreted to mimic the sudden dopamine spikes and crashes one gets from scrolling on social media. Another very important aspect of the show's visual storytelling is the contrast between the beautiful, idealized look of the streaming world and the much more dirty looking feel of the real world. This showcases how, when people emotionally withdraw into the digital world, they often forego caring for the real world environment. In my opinion, each main member of the cast represents a different aspect of how society is impacted by the existence of the internet and social media. While they exist as characters in their own right, it might not be a bad idea to take some lessons from them as to how not to treat your relationship with the internet. The main character Ame, or K-Angel as her online persona is called, is the most interesting character of the whole cast in my opinion. Now, it should not come as a surprise to anyone who has watched the series that K-Angel is a very on-the-nose metaphor for streamers or VTubers to be more precise. The core struggle of her character is the discrepancy she feels between her real self and the self she portrays on screen. K-Angel is the hyper-curated internet angel loved by everyone around her and who feels like she brings joy and happiness to the people around her, while Ame at her core is just a sad, lonely girl who would need the support that K-Angel receives. This leads to Ame developing a codependent relationship with her audience. However, unlike the parasocial relationship that often gets talked about in social media nowadays, this one definitely goes both ways. Because as much as her viewers depend on K-Angel to bring them joy, Ame depends on her viewers to keep her from breaking down. And this type of codependency is a harrowing reminder of what happens when you tie your entire self-worth to the approval of people you don't even personally know. And that need for approval is the reason why Ame feels the need to escalate her performances on stream more and more, up to getting drunk to the point of throwing up and taking drugs on stream, just to keep her viewers' attention. But just as K-Angel serves as a warning for the dangers that the internet, and streaming specifically, bring with it, so does the streamer trio Karamazov showcase the positives of what can come from it. Deadly Poison, Denpa Girl, Purple Lollipop, or just Purple Lollipop, is a direct counterpart to K-Angel, which is especially evident when you consider that she sees herself as K-Angel's rival. While the internet has had quite a negative effect on Ame's mental state, it had a much more positive one on Purple Lollipops. While she's initially a shut-in who doesn't want to go out, it's an event by K-Angel which leads to her coming out of her shell and meeting the friends he'd eventually form Karamazov with. Although she starts out as a loner and outsider, she ends up becoming the heart of the group and even goes on inspiring others to follow in her path, much like K-Angel did for her. The next member of the Karamazov group is Michika Gokubara. Whereas Purple Lollipop is a perfect example of how role models on the internet can help you get out of your shell, Michika showcases how the internet can be a refuge for misfits and people who feel like they don't belong anywhere else. Michika was someone who had never fit in with her peers in real life, especially considering the way she dresses and acts. And through the internet, you found people who appreciate and like her for who she is. Lastly, we have Nejika. While the other two focus more on the emotional and psychological benefits the internet can have despite its downsides, Nejika's story focuses more on the tangible benefits the internet can provide. Coming from a rather poor family, she uses the income she gets from performing as an idol to provide for her family at home. The contrast between K-Angel and Karamazov could honestly not be more stark. While all of them depend on the internet to make their living, it kind of feels like streaming and performing is the only thing K-Angel has in her life, while the Karamazov trio having each other prevents them from forming this unhealthy obsession and relationship with their fans. The last character we need to talk about is Kashe. While her inclusion in the show might initially seem a bit weird due to her being a rather normal person in a world full of streamers and entertainers, she's one of the most important characters in the show. In some ways, she functions as the anchor for the audience. While the other characters deal with things that most viewers might not be too intimately familiar with, dealing with an abusive relationship is something I'm sure many have experienced first or second hand sometime in their life. Some moments in Kashe's story, especially ones involving her abusive boyfriend, contain some harrowing and cruel scenes of sexual violence that are not for the faint of heart. But that is exactly what makes her character arc so inspiring. In the flashbacks we see her just being a regular girl living a normal, boring life. At the start of the story, she wants to break free from that life, but society, and especially her boyfriend, keeps her from pursuing her dreams. But by the end, she manages to break free from her constraints and live the life she wants to live. That development can also be seen visually. In the flashbacks, she has normal black hair. At the start of the story, half her hair is dyed blonde, while the other half is still black, symbolizing her being stuck between her old way of life and the life she wants to live. And after she kicks out her boyfriend, she gets a makeover by Karamazov, fully dyeing her hair blonde to now symbolize her being able to live how she wants. Her story is a stark reminder that an anonymous fanbase online can't really help you in a time of need, but that you need a good support system IRL to get you through your struggles. Apart from just being an awesome story and delivering some thought-provoking moments, this show does a good job at criticizing some aspects of the internet that we nowadays might take for granted. The internet can be a way to present as the ideal version of yourself, but that is not necessarily always a good thing. Because if you spend a lot of time as that alter ego, and God forbid that alter ego gets more love and appreciation than your real self, you might grow to dislike or even hate your real self. There's also something to be said about how loneliness and the need for validation is something that gets perpetuated by social media. Lonely, depressed people turn to the internet for validation, which then inspires viewers to do the same thing, and the cycle continues. And that fact is exacerbated by the existing algorithms on these platforms designed to maximize engagement, which rewards content creators for emotionally charged and vulnerable content. And that speaks to another aspect of the internet which needs to be viewed critically. The algorithms, combined with the ability to earn money on platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, leads to the commodification of people's youth. The series critiques the internet's tendency of turning trauma and sadness into a brand, which leads to people literally selling their youth and vulnerabilities for clout and monetary gain. But what I really love about this show is that it indirectly indicts us, the viewers, of being part of the problem. K-Angel is fueled by getting higher view counts and more reactions, so we the viewers aren't just innocent bystanders in her descent into madness, as the attention we give her fuels her self-destructive tendencies. And yes, the irony of me making a video dissecting the show and Ame herself is not lost on me, as I in some way am also exploiting her mental health for content, even if it is just a fictional character. As dramatic as it sounds, in some ways, livestream chats can function similarly to modern day colosseums if they go unchecked. Users demanding the streamers to do more and more crazy things, or even enjoying them having mental breakdowns on stream, as is the case with this anime, does remind of Roman crowds cheering on gladiators. The problem with the medium of streaming, and VTubing in particular, is that the audience often doesn't even perceive the streamers as real humans, instead just seeing them as a means to their entertainment. But to quickly get back to the actual show, the ending really convinced me of how awesome I think this series is. Episode 1 hooked me, and although it did lose me a bit at points throughout the season, I think the ending concluded all the storylines in such a satisfying way I didn't really think was possible. Big spoilers for the ending ahead, obviously. I for one honestly didn't expect the series to get a happy ending. There were parts throughout the series where it really looked like many of the characters in the cast were headed for a dark ending, and that was definitely in the cards for each and every one of them. Episode 13, the season finale, opens with a segment of what could have been, showcasing what could have happened to the characters had they not chosen the path they did. However, that's not what actually ended up happening. Pretty much all of the characters ended up following a different path than the one they might have envisioned at the start of their journey. Purple Lollipop ended up becoming a fashion designer, starring in a movie, and eventually moving to Europe. Michika became a Lolita fashion model, sometimes even modeling clothes designed by Purple Lollipop. She was also able to speak out about her experiences with substance abuse and self-harm. Nechika going off the grid is what eventually led to Karamazov dissolving, but since she kept sending money to send her little brothers to school, they knew that she was doing fine wherever she was. Kasia became a nail artist and ended up getting proposed to by a guy who truly loved her and wanted to support her and her dreams. And then we get to Ame. No longer going by the moniker of K-Angel, she seems to have said goodbye to the internet and streaming. But despite not being able to achieve all of her goals and enduring periods of suffering as a consequence of leaving the internet, she seems much more happy and at peace than back when she was streaming. I found the ending scene with her riding into the sunset with an otaku oddly poetic, as it seemed to be fulfilling her initial dream of being able to at least make one sad and lonely otaku truly happy. The final sequence links the anime back to the game, seemingly implying this is just another route the game could have taken, showing off what could have happened had certain choices been taken. All in all, I didn't think this anime would offer such a profound and sentimental ending. This series offered some life lessons that many of us, including me, could take to heart. There are no angels that can save you if you're down in the dumps, but if we do our best to be our best selves, we can overcome any and all challenges thrown in our way. This series was an emotional roller coaster in all the best ways, and I'm honestly still not fully done processing everything that happened in the show. And I don't know if I ever will. The show is not necessarily one of my all-time favorites, but it made me think about things in a way that few other shows ever have. And to be honest, that's a big part of what makes this show so special. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's a deeply human story reminding us of the fact that behind every screen there sits a living and breathing real person. Thanks for watching.